Salve te omnes. Welcome to the screencast for Caesar's De Bello Gallico, Book 4, Chapter 24. In this section, we are up to 55 BC. The Gallic War started back in 58, so we are a good 3 years into the war now. And in fact, Caesar had a lot of success. He had tied up most of Gaul, so much so that he had even made incursions into German territory across the Rhine, building a bridge and leading soldiers over there, basically just to show him that he could do it. And likewise, now he's going to launch an invasion into Britain, which remained free and provided kind of a psychological bulwark for the Celts that lived there, and also a way to supply rebellious Celtic peoples that were living on the mainland, or give them a safe haven if anyone ran away from Gaul. And so he is going to take 2 legions over to the British Isles, 80 boats, and in this section, Caesar will begin the British invasion, which looked a lot less like this and a whole lot more like this. So you can see the long-haired Celts. They're fighting hard with anything they got. This guy's got a rock. You can see Caesar back here on the boat, telling everybody to be cool. And you can see, well depicted here, they're in the water itself. So you've got the Aquila Fair. We'll see him in the next section. He's pretty gung-ho. And let's get into it. Not Barbary, but the barbarians, with the plan of the Romans having been discovered, right? So they're not going to be able to just kind of sneak into Britain. The barbarians know all about it, with their cavalry and their chariots having been sent forth. The kind which, quo genera, they were accustomed to use generally in battles, right? So notice this quo genera. So the chariots, we would probably say of the type which, but that all gets attracted into the relative clause here. And so everything in the ablative, quo genera, just because it's hanging off that uti, which takes the ablative. So with their cavalry and chariots sent forth, the kind which they were accustomed to use generally in battle, having subsecuti, having followed closely with their remaining forces, they were prohibiting our guys from getting out from the ships. There was, on account of these reasons, the greatest difficulty, because the ships, propter magnitudinem, because of their size, were not able to be anchored except in deep water, except in the deep. Notice this constitui, passive infinitive for constituere, the same word that can mean to found or establish. Here, since we're talking about ships, put them in position or anchor, right? So they were not able to be put in position or to be anchored except in deep water, right? Remember, we're bringing 2 legions of soldiers over, some 80 ships, large cargo ships that can't really drive right up onto the beach, and so that's going to make the landing especially difficult. Militibus altem, so the soldiers, and that ibus, it's got to be dative or ablative, but we don't know yet. It's going to hang off of the subsequent grammar that comes down here, so let's just hang on to that for a second. Something about soldiers, however. Ignotis locis, in unknown places, impeditis manibus, with their hands encumbered, crushed, pressed down by the great and heavy weight of their arms. Simul et, right? So at the same time, they both and. So at the same time, they both, and now we've got these 3 gerundives, all ending in So these are going to be impersonal constructions, right? That it must be fled by me, it must be peed by me, it must be, in this case, jumped down from the ship. So literally, it had to be jumped down from the ships by the soldiers. Now, of course, that is barely English, and we'd be a lot better served by flipping that around and saying, however, the soldiers, at the same time, both had to jump down from the ships and had to stop or stand, had to take up a position in the waves, and had to fight with the enemies. And so just to notice again, it's actually passive, impersonal. It had to be jumped, it had to be stopped, it had to be fought by the soldiers in all of these conditions, but much better English just to say the soldiers had to do all these things. So our guys are facing those things. They're in unknown places. They're encumbered. Cum illy, when those guys, meaning the barbarians, either because we got out, either or, either from dry land or having gone forward a little bit into the water, omnibus membris expeditis, with all of their limbs unencumbered, right, in complete opposition to our guys who are encumbered, in notissimis locis, in very well-known places, right? They're fighting on home turf. So we've even got a little chiasmus there that we say, unencumbered limbs and familiar places, when he had said familiar places, encumbered limbs. So, kind of a fancy chiasmus there. Go Caesar. Um, these guys, the barbarians, those guys were boldly hurling their weapons and were spurring on their trained horses, insue factus, horses that had been made accustomed to this kind of situation, this kind of fighting. All right, so our guys having a hard time. They're fighting on the home team, on the home turf, and don't have the difficulties that our men are facing. Quibus rebus for these reasons, for which reasons our guys, perterity, very frightened, not just terity, but perterity, thoroughly frightened, and omnino imperiti, completely inexperienced of this kind of fighting. We would probably say in this kind of fighting, but Latin uses the genitive, so you might hew close to that. So completely inexperienced of this kind of fighting, were non-utebantur, we're not using or we're not showing the eadem alacritate, the same eagerness and zeal, quo in pedestribus uti proelis consuerant. So the same zeal which they had been accustomed to use or to show in their foot battles. So the British invasion has begun. Things are starting to happen, and so good luck.